The reviewer is deep inside a big pull request with 4 passes running at once and it's fast. Then the pass reading the test suite stops answering. The coordinator sits there waiting on something that isn't coming back. So the run gets killed and started again because that's the only move anyone has. The new run starts from nothing. It rereads every file, re-derives every finding, and asks the tracker the same questions again. Everything the dead run worked out is gone, and none of it was written anywhere a restart could reach. Freeze right there, because that restart is exactly what this exam turns into a question. Nadia asks the only question that matters. What happens when this dies on the 2 in the morning merge? So what should have been waiting for that restart, and what should the dead pass have said on its way out? That question comes from the smallest domain on the exam, context management and reliability, roughly 9 of the 60 questions you'll sit. It also takes the last task statement in the biggest domain, the one on session state, resumption and forking. That's 4 task statements, and they all answer the 4th architect question parked in the corner. What survives? By the end, you'll know when to resume and when to start clean, what a failing pass sends up, when to hand off, and how a claim keeps its source. Start with the restart, because nothing else matters if it can't come back. What should have been waiting for that new run isn't exotic. It's a notebook. Anthropic documents a pattern for exactly this, and it's deliberately boring. It starts with a session that does no real work. That session writes a progress log and a checklist, and every session after it reads both and updates them before it ends. Their own line for it is that this turns memory into a recovery mechanism. Say it as a rule you can use. If a restart can't read it, it didn't survive. Claude code carries the other half because a session can hold a name and you can resume that one. A resumed session brings its old tool results with it, and a tool result is a photograph of one moment. If the code moved while it was away, those photographs are stale and the model still reads them as current. So resume when the old context is mostly true and start fresh with a summary when the results have gone stale. And when you resume, name the files that change, which buys a targeted reread instead of a full re-exploration. One more move in the task statement, because a session can also be forked. The expensive part is the understanding, so you pay once and branch, comparing 2 testing strategies without paying twice. So the reviewer can come back. What did that dead pass owe the coordinator on its way out? The restart has a notebook now, and the next job is the failure itself, where 3 ways to get it wrong all read as careful engineering. The first one swallows it. The subagent catches its own timeout and returns an empty result marked successful. Now a failure looks exactly like a search that found nothing, and the report ships with a hole and no sign of one. The second one reports it generically. The subagent retries, runs out of retries, and sends up a status that says search unavailable. That's honest and useless because the coordinator can't tell what was tried, so it can't pick what's next. The third one sends the exception to a top level handler that shuts the whole rundown. That's the cold open. One dead pass costs 3 finished ones. All 3 take away the same thing, and it's the coordinator's ability to decide. So here is the line to carry out of this episode. A failure has to arrive with a decision still attached. What the coordinator needs has a name, structured error context, and the guide lists 4 fields. Failure type, what was attempted, partial results, and the alternatives worth trying. With those 4, it can retry narrower route around the dead pass, or finish with partial coverage and say so. Replay the cold open with that card arriving. Nadia's run doesn't die, it comes back 3 passes deep with the gap named. One exam favorite hides here because an access failure and a genuine empty result aren't the same event. A timeout means try something else. 0 matches means the answer is 0. And the division of labor is explicit because a subagent fixes the transient failures it can and sends up only what it couldn't. So a failure travels now. Next is the case where nothing failed and the system still shouldn't answer. The system can report a failure now, and next it needs a way to stop when nothing has failed. Escalation has three named triggers, and difficulty isn't one of them. Someone explicitly asks for a human. That's one. The policy is silent or ambiguous about what's being asked. That's two. And the system can't make meaningful progress. That's three. Two proxies get called out as unreliable, the tone of the request and the model's own confidence, because neither measures complexity. When someone asks for a human, you hand off straight away without investigating first to prove you could have handled it. When the tone is bad but the fix is inside what the system can do, acknowledge it and escalate only if they ask again. The trigger people design out by accident is ambiguity, like a policy covering your own price adjustments but not a competitor's. The system doesn't have an answer there, it has a gap, and guessing into a gap turns into a precedent nobody agreed to. Same shape when a lookup returns three near identical rows because the system asks for one more identifier instead of guessing. And the fix isn't code, it's escalation criteria in the system prompt with worked examples of escalate against resolve. Stopping is covered. Now the opposite reflex, trying again, which does damage that's easy to miss. Retries are the next job in the build, and most of that work is already done for you. The official client libraries already retry transient failures for you with backoff, and they honor a retry after hint when one comes back. So the retrying is handled. That's not the part that hurts you. The connection drops just after the reviewer posted its comment on Marco's pull request. The retry lands, and now there are two. A retry is only safe if the thing being retried can happen twice without doing damage twice. That property is not in the library, you build it. So make the effect idempotent, which means your code generates an ID and keys the side effect by that ID. Posting a comment becomes lookup the comment for this ID, write it. If it's missing, replace it if it's there. And don't retry what can't succeed, because a malformed request will be malformed the second time too. One more trap, because on a streamed response, the error can arrive after the success status. So success isn't a successful turn. One piece left, and it decides whether the report is worth anything. Watch what happens to a finding on its way into the report. Attribution dies at the summarization step, because compressing a finding drops the mapping from a claim to what said it. The four passes summarize, the coordinator merges them, and the report tells Nadia the migration is unsafe with nothing behind it. So require the mapping as part of the output, where every claim carries the file it came from and the excerpt that backs it. Then synthesis merges those mappings instead of rewriting everything into prose that drops them again. Then conflicts, where the instinct is to pick the more credible source. That's your distractor. Both values go up annotated with their sources, and the coordinator reconciles them. A lot of apparent contradictions are only two different moments, so the output has to carry the publication or collection date. And the pass that timed out earns a line as a coverage gap in a report that separates what's well supported from what's contested. That's the build. Now sit the guide's own published question on it. In the multi-agent research scenario, a search subagent times out, and you design how that failure gets back to the coordinator. Option 1. Catch the timeout inside the subagent and return an empty result set marked successful. Option 2. Retry inside the subagent with backoff and return a search unavailable status once the retries are gone. Option 3. Send the timeout to a top-level handler that terminates the whole research workflow. Option 4. Return structured error context, the failure type, the attempted query, any partial results, and the alternatives. Every option here is about what the coordinator gets told, so it's a what survives question. One dies first because it files a failure as a success, and nothing downstream can recover from what it can't see. 3 dies next because one timed out search doesn't justify destroying work the others finished. 2 catches careful people because retrying locally is genuinely correct. It dies on its second half where the retries run out and it sends up two words with no decision in them. 4 is the answer, the only option that leaves a decision available to something that can still act. That's the test for every error handling item on this exam. A failure has to arrive with the decision still attached. Look at where Nadia's reviewer stands tonight. It can be killed and come back to a recorded state instead of a blank board. A failing pass sends up what it was doing and what it got, so one timeout costs one pass and not the run. It stops when the rules are silent, its side effects survive a retry, and every claim still knows its source. 2 lines to walk into the exam with. A failure has to arrive with a decision still attached. And if a restart can't read it, it didn't survive. Next time the reviewer posts 3 findings on a big pull request, then stops half done, 1 run in 10.